In this clip, I want to talk about atheism and what it actually is. The definition of atheism is that if you're an atheist, you do not believe in any gods of any sort, nor any what could be deemed supernatural beings. Also, in theory, you're not supposed to believe in the existence of Satan either. So, atheists will say, oh, atheism is not a religion. But let me bring this up. We'll start off with, the Church of Satan. Now, people would say, oh, this is some sort of satanic cult. They worship Satan, and this is not true. They believe that Satan resides in our subconsciousness. So they don't actually worship any being called Satan. Next, Scientology. Oh man, how do I get to explain this? They do not believe in a creator God. They believe creatures called Thetans were imprisoned in volcanoes which were set loose by hydrogen bombs. And no, you're going to have to look it up for yourself. I'm not going to explain it, but they are atheists. Their definition, if you could say that, of any godlike entity is the eighth dynamic. What that means, I have absolutely no idea, and I'm leaving it at that. The next one is the Nation of Gods and Earths, also known as the 5%ers. They believe that black men are gods and black women are earths. It's actually a breakaway from the Nation of Islam, which is a black supremacist cult that believes an evil black scientist called Yaqub created white people on some spaceship or supposedly over Japan or I don't know, it's pretty whacked out. But the Nation of Gods and Earths, as I understand it, came about as a split away from the Nation of Islam. And Nation of Gods and Earths is also blacks only. Because it broke away because, as I understand it, its founder, who was called Clarence 13X, liked to play craps, which was gambling, which is against Islam. Islam forbids it, but But say you've got the Nation of Islam that believes whites are the children of Yaqub, who is supposedly the devil, or that's a major facepalm factor. But there is a white equivalent called the World Church of the Creator. They believe, they believe that there's no God, and that their aim is for a completely white planet. All the other races will simply be obliterated. Nation of Islam believes that all black people collectively are God. I should have taken an aspirin before I started this. Okay, onto something maybe a little bit more decent and realistic to deal with: Buddhism. Buddhists do not believe in a creator God. How things come about, I have no idea. but they do engage in spiritual type practices. So, I don't know, maybe a Buddhist can explain it, but, you know, the theory is that Buddha was the most perfect man on earth, and it's their obligation to imitate him in every way. I suppose I don't really know anyone who has any problem with Buddhists, so we'll just leave it at that. Next is Jainism. Jainism is more or less along the same lines. They don't believe that there is a creator God, but they believe through spiritual practices they can become gods. So, should have taken 2 aspirins. So, but no one really has a problem with Jains, so just leave it at that. But when people of these, they will say it's not a religion, it's just a practice. But when they desire to become higher beings, well, you can't say that it's not a religion because there is a supernatural component to it. And there's more to come. Okay. So you can say those cults or religions are atheist religions. There is no God, or certainly no personal creator God. Well, let's look at what we have going around now. Christian atheism, also known as Jesusism or Jesuism. It says there is no God, but Jesus is a role model. So you could say it's in the same area as Buddhism. And actually Buddhism doesn't really have any complaints against Jesus, though the average Buddhist will tell you that Jesus was someone who should be respected, and I believe that too. Christian atheism, which is what it is, just does not believe that there was a God factor or creator factor involved in all of this. They just say he's a good guy who should be imitated. Yeah, same in the same way as Buddha is now. I don't think anyone has any problems with that. It's just the absence of a creator, which I don't know, makes it not logical to follow such a belief. But we can continue on. Christian Zionism. Now, I don't know if you call this atheism. I call it more apostasy, because if you're a Christian, you believe Jesus is either a personal God, or you believe he is an aspect of God who operated on this earth, in this world. And yet Zionism is a completely atheist ideology. So you're more or less saying by saying you're a Christian Zionist, you're saying you're a Christian atheist. Though Zionism was made for a particular racial group, or a tribal group more correctly. If you ever have a conversation with some of these people, they'll tell you the Jews worship God, the Christians worship Jesus, and Muslims worship the moon. So you can say to them, so you'll say that Jesus is not God, and I'll say Jesus is God. So you say the Jews worship Jesus then. No, the Jews worship God. It's a purely political heresy. That's all it really is. It's based on the Schofield Bible. Look that up for yourself, and it's purely politics. There's some guy called John Hagee who's the champion of Christian Zionism. Just look him up for yourself. So it's purely political. If we're talking about Jews, we've got to go to Ashkenazi Judaism. In the United States, it's said that Ashkenazi Judaism has a 50% atheism rate. I put that down to that being Jewish is really a matter of who your mother is, not what you actually believe. So you're born off a Jewish mother, then you're Jewish, and you don't believe in God, well, you're still Jewish. Actually, Judaism will not expel atheists from their synagogues. The only way you can be kicked out is if you stand up inside a synagogue and formally renounce it. So, but it's probably a similar situation for all religions of atheism. Islam does have an equivalent called Wahhabi atheism. I suppose now in Saudi Arabia, if you're an atheist, you don't come out and say it. But as I understand it, Wahhabi atheism, you're just required to go through the motions. As I said, this is something you'd find in any religion. You have people going along with it because they really don't have a choice. So I'll just stop here. And I think I've given an overview, a very brief one, where atheists say they don't follow any religion. Well, you can't say that is actually true. But when you look at the people who call themselves atheists, we haven't dealt with them yet. They're called Western atheists, and they don't actually seem to come across as atheists. They will say things about Jesus, Jesus was evil, and yet at the same time they'll say he doesn't exist. They'll say, in the Old Testament God was evil, and yet they also say in the same sentence, but he didn't exist. So how can you be evil if you don't exist? That's coming to the next bit.